Okay, so what I did read was a chapter, or I think it was part of it, or like an article. Um, it's about the World War II, or mostly about Germany and what Hitler did to, or in his words, for Germany. And it starts with basically how Adolf Hitler started and how he raised or how he came into power. So, mm, basically, well, not basically, Adolf Hitler, he was, in his own words, he was very patriotic. And before the idea of going into another war, there was this, at the end of World War One, since the Germans did lose that, Hitler was not happy because he did also serve during World War One as um, a soldier as well, and he was not happy with the results of the war because, um, of course, he would never be happy with the results of World War One. Germany did lose, and in the Treaty of Versailles, in this treaty, it was signed right after World War One. It's basically a treaty saying that these are the rules that they've set or the conditions that need to be followed and need to follow through, because he did lose. So, what it says in the Treaty of Versailles was that Germany would lose a decent, well, not decent, like a large amount of its territory. And it's a treaty saying that they are holding or they held Germany accountable solely for World War One because mostly, yeah, it was Germans. They also played a very big role in World War One, but they lost that, so that they have to follow through. They have to follow through with the Treaty of Versailles. So the Germans lost a lot of territory, and basically, from what I understood of the Treaty of Versailles, is that they're working their butt off to come. There's a bit of a compensation to compensate for the war. So they're also giving money or their service. They're also working for basically another country. They're not working for Germany. If that makes any sense, because they do have to compensate for World War One. Anyway, yeah, the article the article mentioned that as well, and after that, um, a lot of soldiers, a lot of Germans, mostly soldiers that did serve in World War One as well. They were not happy. Of course, nobody would be happy since you lost the war, and especially Hitler. He was enraged by this, um, because he was not in the battlefield when Germany announced that they surrendered for World War One. He was at the hospital. So during his stay in the hospital, a priest approached him saying, "Oh, by the way, oh, Germany surrendered," and that enraged him. And I think it also mentions that it caused more of a mental strain after hearing that. That's why Hitler also mentioned that he was very patriotic. So anyway, after that, Hitler started going to these pubs, or they call it beer hole in Germany, or in the article they mention it as a beer hole, where this small party, they would gather in this pub and talk. It's basically like their small TED talks in a pub. That's how it was explained in the article or chapter, that what they talk about is what what Germany deserves, what Germany should look like, how Germany should be treated, and how much they were disappointed with the results of World War One. And Hitler also started speaking, giving speeches in this small pub, and they were so astounded. The way Hitler speaks, he is a very influential person. He has this aura, and he has the way he brings himself up, or the way he carries himself. You would actually listen, and how I'm explaining this, whenever he gives a speech, I also watched a raw footage of one of Hitler's speeches. This is not in a pub, but in like a large stadium of Germany. That's a raw footage from during World War II, and how he talks to the German citizens and German soldiers. It makes you want to listen. I don't even understand German, and it still made me listen. So it was also part why I was interested in this Hitler person. Not because of his world views and his political views, I do not agree to that, but because of his rhetorics and his language and his speech, how he carries himself in public. It it makes you give all your attention to him. So those are one of the theories, or one of the components in other historians' views of how he came into power. But anyway, that's that was a segue of the timeline that I was saying. After people hear his speeches in this small pub, he was basically like headhunted by this man called Ernest Röhm. Ernest Röhm, he started this party, the German Nationalist Party, and it is the Nazi Party, but at that time it was called the German Nationalist Party. So in short, we will call them the Nazi Party. Uh, so Hitler did agree to join, of course, and they started their movement. They started not fully being in public, because they know that they were still under um, the Versailles Treaty. So anything they do that could warrant it as wanting to start another war, that could result in imprisonment. Actually, even um, I'm aware, even up to this day, if you are public about wanting to start a war with another country, or giving out war idea idea ideals or ideologies, um, you would be called a terrorist. And of course, sorry, of course that does happen also in the Philippines. That happens. So anyway, um, the way the Nazi Party started recruiting, little by little. They recruited former German officers, or former soldiers that were part of World War One, people who were mistreated, people who were blamed for for Germany surrendering during World War One. So they did, people who were basically still outraged, um, as a because of the results of World War One. They recruited those people, and they started, the Nazi Party started growing bigger and bigger. And one of the first things that was well documented that Adolf Hitler did for the Nazi Party was he went to this gathering that the Nazi Party was not invited. Of course, they were not invited. And in this gathering, it had a public figure. Uh, this public figure, I think, was I forgot his name. It's a long German name, but he wanted this public figure to join the Nazi Party, and the way Hitler approached him, um, basically he bombarded him during. It's at nighttime, so they were having dinner. It was in a pub, so they were astounded and overwhelmed by Hitler, because of course, if someone pushes you to please join our party, um, that would overwhelm anyone. So um, members of it's another social or another political party that was in the pub. They were all asking the Nazi party to leave. So just please leave, please leave. So it it started getting rowdy. So Hitler pointed his gun upwards the bar and pulled the trigger. So the noise of the gunshot within the bar, it scared a lot of people, and they all went outside, and it basically turned into an uproar. And the next few days, when the government found out about it, that there was this new party, this new political party that bombarded this public figure, uh, and they saw it as treason. So he was imprisoned for that. He was imprisonment for, I think how they worded out is ideologies of war. It's 5 years, but he never fulfilled those the full 5 years, because that's how influential Hitler was. Um, before when he was on trial for treason, he did not take an attorney or a lawyer. He wanted to speak for himself, and just like what he did in the pub, he made the people in the courtroom give their full attention to him. And he was not denying anything. He was saying, yes, I did do this. But he explained it so well that it did not come off as treason. It came off as someone who loves Germany very, very, very much, and who is very patriotic of his country, that it unfortunately turned into an uproar, and it had a negative effect on the people involved. That's how he explained it, and the people in the courtroom, they were believing him. They were believing what he said, and he was that, as I said earlier, he was so influential. He didn't even serve the full 5 years of his sentence, but he did still serve. So he was still in jail for a decent amount of time. So during his stay, during his imprisonment, he and his other friend, who is part of the Nazi Party, he wrote his own book. His friend was the one that typed for him. In this book is his beliefs. It's basically everything that you would expect Hitler to write. So it's an embodiment of everything that the Nazi Party is, or it's part of that. This book, it's named Mein Kampf, and Mein Kampf, it means my struggles. So I think it also in part also tells how he feels about the World War One, because I perceive it as something. I perceive it as Hitler's diary. Because what else are you gonna do during imprisonment? There's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to read. Nobody gave him a book. They gave him a typewriter and a friend to type for him. So of course, To me, I from the basic description that the article gave me, it feels like Hitler's diary. So it's such a personal thing or a personal text that I would like to someday read the original the original copy of Mein Kampf, because Mein Kampf is was published in, I think the year said 1956, and it did not sell well. But I don't think they Hitler concentrated on it being a bestseller. But a few years later, after World War II, it was um, republished many times by now, actually. Some it stayed as the original name, Mein Kampf. It has obviously the author, Adolf Hitler, but it has different editors. So different editors and different publishing houses. So if it's a different editor and different publishing house, of course the perspective on the book would still be different. So I would like to read the original one, um, one that is closer to the original German text. But anyway, after his imprisonment, he started recruiting more people who are. He started this inner circle of members that he knew he could trust. So to be in Hitler's inner circle, you had to gain his trust, and you had to show him. You don't tell him. You have to show him what you would do for Germany and how far you would go for Germany. So all very patriotic stuff. If only it did not result in mass genocide, I would respect the patriotism. Um, so he got these um, former former sergeants, former commanders from World War One, um, very very smart and tactical people. Because why do I say they're smart and tactical? Tactical. You see how far they've gone throughout World War Two, and in that article it mentions how what kind of a person Adolf Hitler was, and how he came into power, and how World War One started. So I don't think I need to get into the results and what happened during the war. The article doesn't mention so much of that. It just mentions how it started and why. And also, there are also a few articles on why Hitler hated um, Jewish Jewish people. In the article, it didn't go into why. It went into how he started oppressing the Jewish community within his area. So of course, he started in his area. Um, what he did was he had Nazi soldiers go in front of the stores of Jewish people and persuade or coerce its loyal the Jewish store's loyal customers to do not buy here. Do not trust do not trust Jewish sellers. Do not buy from Jewish markets, from any Jewish man or any Jewish woman. That's what they started um, telling German citizens. And of course, at first, they were like, no, uh, no, I have to buy here. This is the store I go to every day. Of course, if you're a loyal customer, you wouldn't just believe someone who just says that without having any reason as to why you would stop using this person's service. So that's common sense on the German citizen's part. And also, after that, it he started with little things to oppress the Jewish community. Of course, Um, that was a big one. The one with trying to get trying to get their store to uh, basically go bankrupt. So trying to tell the customers, don't buy here, don't buy here, and a few little things, this and that. And also it's also um, for that Jewish community where he started it all. He started like basically putting a name tag, or to me it feels like a leash, a name tag on on the Jewish community. So when a Jewish man or woman or even child would go out into the streets, they had to have this like label. um, it's, I think it's color yellow. It's a symbol of the Star of David, and it's on their left breast pocket, so that any man you see walking by with a Star of David on the breast pocket, on the left breast pocket of a man, you would instantly identify them as Jewish. Um, I don't I don't know why the German citizens did not think by this time, why would we need an basically like an identification to identify this person as Jewish? That has religion has nothing to do with a person's character. You can still be Roman Catholic and still be a bad person. I mean, Roman Catholics, Judaism, Buddhists, anyone could be a bad person regardless of religion. So I believe that religion has nothing to do with your character. That's just in my opinion. But anyway, that is what the article states. And if I were to create a character based on that article, it would be a very a very tactful person, someone who's very calculative and very smart and has that grit. Grit is like descarte. They know which people to approach. They know that kind of networking that you do to get to where you want to be. Um, so this character that I have in my mind, based on that article, it would be very a Machiavellian. It Yeah, he would have Machiavellianism. He would be a narcissist as well. This Machiavellian person, a person who would do anything, who would use anyone to achieve his goal. And that's what Hitler did as well. Um, this person would be a person of um, he. This person would not have good moral standards. Obviously, since he's Machiavellian and narcissistic, this person would be into power. So this character in my head, he would be a public figure. I'm not thinking of Hitler. I'm thinking of the character that I made based on that article. So it would be a person that was oppressed, or a person basically was spoiled enough to think that he was oppressed. But that's just what you deserve for that's what you deserve for bullying a person. It's the consequences of your actions. It's not that you're oppressed. So that's the character in my head. And this person would actually be very, like, you would have this aura of being approachable, of you wanting to put your faith and your trust in this person. And that character in my head is a very dangerous person, because of the aura he gives off and how he carries himself in public. That person could manipulate anyone and everyone, and his intentions, this character's intentions, are wrong. It's his intentions, or his ambition for his life and for everyone else, it's rooted in deep anger, and it's rooted in in negligence or ignorance, possibly. So yeah, that's the character I have in my head. And that's also, I also gave a summarization of what I read.